Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views covering the topics we hope are relevant to you. Today, Modi calls for a ceasefire in the Middle East. Will anyone listen? The Canadian Security Service is accused of knowing Sikhs were in danger before Nijar's killing and doing nothing about it. Indian doctors on the march once again over sexual assaults on women. We also talk about shadow banning. Well, we believe it's happened to us, and clearly we're not the only ones, as the Sikh Press Association provide clear evidence it's happening to them too. And if all that's not enough, we're also going to talk about sewage, of all things, in India. Well, joining me, as always, for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to all of our amazing viewers out there.
Indeed, and together James and I will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And as always, we'll be taking a look at lots of your great comments which have been filling up below our videos, so thank you so much for those. James, let's get things underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, Angus, it appears that the courts in Punjab and Haryana have done taking shit from the government, I guess you could say. They have ordered them to make a payment of just under $1.4 million into a fund, and this has got to do with their sewage treatment facilities and what they're committed to, or what their commitments are, as opposed to how they're not fulfilling those obligations under the Act. Now, they've been dragged into court over and over again because of the sewage plant that's spewing the raw sewage and sludge. Not only is it putting it out in the main waterways, but it's also putting it out right next to a school. So this, of course, has taken on a huge environmental risk, but also a health risk for the village and the school children that are subjected to all of the particulates that are in the water and in the air. And of course, there's seepage into the ground and such. So the court has ordered the government of Punjab to deposit into an account 12 crore within 2 days. And as I said, that's approximately 1.4 million US. And because they have failed to take the court seriously and keep stalling things, the court decided that they were going to put their foot down and not accept anything less than that deposit. But further to that, they're also threatening that if the government continues to delay and stall, that they are going to be fined another 1 crore daily. So that's almost $120,000 US per day for any further delays. Now, the judge is not taking anything for granted when it comes to them. The government came back and they wanted to put it into an escrow account for future payment to the contractor that's supposed to be dealing with this matter and operating, building and operating these sewage treatment centers, and they are not doing it. So further to that, the judge ordered them to put it into the account for administration, but that it was not to be an escrow account that they would have control over, and that takes the power out of their hands and really puts pressure to clean up the waterways and the sewage around that school, around the community, but also puts other communities on notice that the courts are cracking down on these environmental issues. Angus, you and I have spoken previously about the disgusting mess of the waterways and all of the not only sewage, but other biochemicals and chemicals in general that are being dumped into waterways all across India. So hopefully this is a message that this will not be tolerated. And the other points that they were bringing up, and I'm just going to refer to an article here that was written and posted, and that is the huge deficit in the requirement in the numbers of STPs, so sewage treatment plants. They have a minimum number that are to be installed and functioning in the state of Punjab, and of course, they are not meeting those standards. So this is, again, just an example of one community and one area that's being impacted directly. But of course, the courts are looking at the bigger picture now instead of just this one incident. Now, the intervention was necessary due to the abysmal failure, is what they described it, of the operation and maintenance of the contractor. The fecal content reaching up to 9 lakh, so that's 9 million units per 100 milliliters, which is well beyond the 1,000 units that's allowable per 100 milliliters. So it shows the amount of contaminants that are in that. And of course, we know the risks to health that this has, but to be that astronomically far and above the limits, that's just cruel and unusual to the people that live there. It is almost a torture or, a crime. Well, it is a crime. And that is something that the courts are finally cracking down on. It's good to see, Angus, that they are taking the environment seriously, but also the health of people in the communities that have been left on their own. All of these makeshift little villages are sprouting up along the waterways as they're pushed out of farming and other rural communities. They are just trying to survive, and these villages pop up without the infrastructure, including the sewage treatment plants, Angus. It's just disgusting.
It is, and we did cover the whole concept or the whole subject of pollution some time ago, to the extent that we highlighted the fact that the Punjab is known as the cancer capital of India, primarily because of extraordinarily high levels of industrial pollutants spilling out from, well, the agricultural industry and of course just general industry, manufacturing industry. And here we have sewage, which is one of the most basic pollutants that is, of course, usually one of the most basic areas to tackle before anything else. India has a problem, of course, with this because it is so populous. And it does require a huge amount of attention and, of course, a huge amount of resources and money to ensure that sewage pollutants don't enter the watercourses. What is disturbing is this isn't just a small amount. This is 9,000 times the acceptable safe level. I mean, that is extraordinary. And one has to ask, is it deliberate? Is it incompetence? What is it? I don't think it's deliberate, but is it an almost acquiescent? Is it being allowed to happen by a state that is in thrall to Delhi? The state government is, of course, in thrall to the central government of Delhi. They basically do what they're told by Delhi. And it's taken the Supreme Court, the supposedly independent judiciary, to actually say to them, look, you are not doing your job. And it's appalling because, yeah, it's not just people their health being affected. It's schools, as you said rightly, James. It's young children that are being directly affected by this. There is a basic human right on this planet that all nations abide by, and that is the basic human right to clean water. And certainly one of the most fundamental rights that any organisations, any governments are obliged to deliver to their people of their nation is clean water. India is failing. Ultimately, the buck stops with the Indian government here. Why isn't the Indian government, central government, doing something about this? Punjab state government has clearly failed spectacularly. The central government clearly is just doing nothing about it. It's taken the judiciary to step in and say, look, you have to do something about this. You have an obligation to acknowledge the basic human right of clean water. I mean, the Punjab, the state of 5 rivers, is not short, certainly in the wet season, not short of clean water, but it is being polluted. Why is it being polluted? It's the state machinery that is failing it. It is the state machinery run by Delhi that is failing the people of Punjab once again. And ultimately, it always comes back to this central argument, this central point. If the Punjab had self-autonomy, if it had the right to manage its own affairs, I am pretty sure that very quickly this problem would be cleared up, James. I think it's very clear that if the Punjab was in control of its own infrastructure, its own affairs, and of course in control of its own water supply, I have absolutely no doubt that this would not be an issue, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And a couple other just quick points on that is that the contractor who is responsible for this mess, along with the government, the courts are actually questioning why they've received the payments they have when they haven't met any type of threshold or requirement. So there's questions about that. And the judge has actually gone even further than that and questioning how this contractor actually received the contract. And it seems to be outside of the scope of the common practice for the tendering of this agreement and this financial, obviously, very financially rewarding contract if they were to do it right. But now it's even more rewarding because they're taking the money but not doing the job. So the judge is actually, I've got to take my hat off to the judge. He's really digging into not only what's there in front of him, but also the bigger picture. And I think that goes a long way to show how this particular judge is using his position to make life better for those he serves as a judiciary member. So that's great, because we hear a lot about corruption and turning a blind eye, and this judge definitely has both eyes very focused. So, but we'll move along here, Angus. We've got a tight show with a lot of things going on. So let's take a look at what's going on most recently in Israel. Now, there are a lot of different reports coming out. And just recently, Prime Minister Modi was actually on the phone with the Prime Minister of Israel. Now, Netanyahu was on that call with him just prior to Iran's major attack. And Modi was actually trying to play the peacemaker, and he wanted to see a ceasefire. He very much called out the terroristic acts and the need to have hostages returned to their homes from both sides, and just said that it's not acceptable. That he put very firm words down on trying to bring peace to the Middle East and to basically enter into a ceasefire agreement. Now, this here has gone completely out the window because of the fact that Iran unleashed a torrent of attacks and missiles onto Israel. And I'm going to actually bring up a quick video here, Angus, to just kind of show. This is from the Israeli, we'll say the Israeli media machine. And this is simply videos of the airstrikes that were coming in to Israel while people were in flights close by, people on the ground, and they were just randomly hitting. There was no real specified in terms of where they went.
Last night, Iran unleashed nearly 200 ballistic missiles on Israel, an unforgivable act of war. Iran has proven it is the world's top sponsor of terror, leading Hezbollah, Hamas and others in a murderous rampage across the region. This rogue regime endangers not just Israel but Europe, Ukraine and global peace. Iran must be crushed with crippling sanctions. Its revolutionary guards must be declared terror. Iran attacked. Israel will hit back to defend its people. The world must unite to stop Iran's terror.
So as you can see from that video, they're really pushing it out on social media to really garner public support, not only there in Israel, but around the world. As you can see, their English language, very clear, very concise wording. They make mention to the security of Europe, of Ukraine, and other areas. Of course, they are playing on the Western world to try to garner that support, but realistically, it is a real big threat of a major war breaking out in the Middle East as a result of this action. Now, there's been a war going on as we approach now a 1-year mark since the attacks first started, and things ignited there in Israel and in Palestine. And now it just seems like Israel is battling in all directions, whether it's Lebanon, whether it is in, of course, Iran and Palestine, and, it's just ongoing. Now, apparently, the reports are coming out that that Israel is already notified the United States and other countries and world leaders that they are planning or were planning to make a foot soldier maneuver and actually take ground forces into Lebanon. Now, again, this was announced shortly before Iran launched this attack. So whether or not that's going to continue or if they're going to refocus on where they're sending their resources, it's hard to say. But Netanyahu and his government have made it very, very clear that there is nowhere in the Middle East that the terrorists and others can hide. They will reach anywhere into the Middle East, and they are not afraid to do so. They have the military gear, the equipment, and the resources to do so, according to their reports. So just quickly, I'm just going to kind of scoot through this article from the Hindustan Times, and I'm not going to take time to go through it all. I just want to bring up a couple of quotes that were in here. And this first one here was from Modi on X, or formerly Twitter, and it said, spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu about recent developments in West Asia. Terrorism has no place in our world. It is crucial to prevent regional escalation and ensure the safe release of all hostages. India is committed to supporting efforts for an early restoration of peace and stability. And again, that was from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, as we scroll down, we're just going to kind of jump down again to another quote. And here, the Prime Minister Netanyahu was quoted as saying, there is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach. There is nowhere we will not go to protect our people and protect our country. And that is a very stern warning to all in that region. And other than that, I will just cover this last one, and that comes from the deputy leader of Hezbollah. And he says, we will face any possibility, and we're ready if the Israelis decide to enter by land, and the resistance forces are ready for a ground engagement. So as you can see, there is a very large amount of sword play here, of words, but I do feel that they are ready to back it up with more than just words, Angus. I think they're ready to back it up with some very dangerous and highly concentrated attacks, not only on ground. With the most recent incident with Iran, I think it's going to be, it's either somebody's got to get in there and help to get a ceasefire. But in the meantime, I don't think Netanyahu's going to let that happen before he strikes back at Iran. And it becomes a major war, I think, is what you're looking at in that region. And of course, with other instability around the world right now, it is really a scary thought to look at where we are heading, how calmer heads are not prevailing in preventing war, in bringing peace talks. It's just all gloves are off right now, Angus.
Yes, I suppose the big question here is what business is it of India to get involved in this? And I think, ironically, India actually has very little business or has very little stakes in either side of this conflict, which actually means that it could therefore be seen as a fair and equitable power broker, or at least a peace broker in this situation. So I think, Modi could actually arguably be a fairly neutral middleman in this in any negotiations. Of course, Israel, I think quite likely will just say, "Butt out. This is none of your business." So it does really point to where is this all leading, and I think, of course, this is a conflict that has been going on, funnily enough, since 1948. That date seems to sort of be very significant, doesn't it? For many reasons, for all of us here. But yes, I think the question is, where is this going to lead? The head of this serpent is Iran. I mean, I think there is no doubt that a lot of the issues that have been going on in the Middle East, certainly over recent years, all come back to Iran. There are so many proxies of the Iranian fighting machine, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, whether it's those dropping rockets from Gaza into Israel. Israel is under attack from all sides, and generally speaking, they tend to be proxies of Iran. And it's these same proxies of Iran that are causing all sorts of problems globally. And of course, Yemen is another prime. The Houthi rebels in Yemen, another prime example where that's actually affecting the rest of the world, because of course that's one of the major logistics supply routes going through the Suez Canal. So of course the Yemeni Houthis are firing rockets at freighters, container ships, trying to pass through the Suez Canal. So it is directly affecting the rest of the world, which is why the rest of the world actually are quite concerned about all this. So is this, I think we're actually at a bit of a nexus point here. This could go one of two ways. Things will calm down, in which case, if that does happen, it's only going to flare up once again, because this problem is not going to go away. And I think this leads on to the other possible direction this could go in. And this is actually an all-out war on Iran, or at least a war of some description against Iran. Maybe this is the right time. It's all reaching ahead, and it has to come one day. Iran is a global problem. There's no doubt about it. I think almost universally around the world, Iran is seen as a bit of a problem. Even amongst the Arab world, Iran is seen as a problem. Of course, there is the faction in the Islamic world. Where, of course, there's the two divisions of Islam, which perpetually are fighting between each other. So maybe this is the time when the world unites and says, right, we have to get rid of this Iranian problem and the Ayatollahs. Now, interestingly, I do read regularly people on social media from Iran who have the courage to actually speak out. This actually does reflect what happens in the Punjab and India. There are those on the ground who, when they can get around the various internet firewalls and they dare speak out publicly, there are many in Iran who are saying we don't like this extremist Islamic regime that is ruling Iran. And if you only go back 40 years, Iran was the most beautiful country with the most wonderful society. It was the poster child of the Middle East in many ways. And then the extremist Islamic fundamentalists got into power, and the Ayatollahs got into power. And suddenly we have this clamped down regime that's clamping down on society. And of course, women in Iran have to live under a pretty oppressive regime. But I do read regularly of, and there is this rumour, not even just a rumour, I think it's more than a rumour, it's pretty substantiated that there is a large part of the Iranian population who are sick and tired of the current regime. They are ready to rise up and overthrow. I think what will happen, my prediction is that actually guns will now turn on Iran. I think Hezbollah and Gaza is almost a sideshow now, and I think Israel is about to launch something against Iran, which may actually be part of a multilateral attack on Iran. And I think whether it will be publicly or beneath the surface, I think the US and many Western nations will join in on this. And I think the aim is to topple the Iranian regime. I can see the Iranian regime being toppled in the near future. I think we are at that nexus point. As I say, it could go one of two ways. All things could quieten down over the next 12 months, or this could lead to a larger escalation, which may be the right time to do this. I will never be an advocate for war, but unfortunately we may need major surgery now to avoid longer term pain. And I think maybe now is the time that all guns will point towards the Iranian regime, and from the external forces from Israel and its allies, and internally I think there will be encouragement from agents provocateurs to rise up the population in Iran to overthrow its government. And I think from beneath and from the side, I think there will be an all-out attack on the Iranian regime, hopefully to topple that regime, and that will potentially bring peace not just to that local region, but of course to a wider Middle Eastern region. So yeah, James, it's a big story. India's involvement, I think they could act as a peacemaker. Slightly ironic, bear in mind that they are feeding the Russian war machine in Ukraine. But yeah, we'll see where this leads.
Well, and I think a part of it too is with their plan to be a modern and developed nation by 2047, to mark their 100th anniversary of independence. I think that they're really trying to push the narrative on the international stage that, look, we can be a player in international diplomacy. We can be a player in bringing peace to regions and being a mediator. But at the same time, they've got to take a look in their own backyard. If they're not able to handle their own backyard and their own getting their own house affairs in order, then it's going to be a really risky proposition to have them in a position to negotiate for others.
Indeed. Okay, let's move things along back to Canada, actually, James, and we'll talk briefly about the ongoing second phase of the investigation in this inquiry into foreign interference. And interestingly, yesterday a video was released of Prabjot Singh. Now, Prabjot Singh he's representing a coalition of Sikh organisations who have a voice, a very powerful voice in this inquiry. And he recently cross-examined the leadership of CSIS, the Canadian Intelligence Services, including the former director David Vigneault, about their knowledge regarding Indian foreign interference and, of course, threats to the lives of Sikh activists within Canada. And I just want to quickly play you just a minute, a selection of this discussion, this questioning of Director David Vigneault.
Go to the fact that last September, most Canadians publicly learned, and this is unclassified public information, that India is willing to go to the extent of murdering Sikh activists in Canada. Is that something that you can say, Mr. Vigneault?
Yes, you refer to the Prime Minister's statement in the House of Commons about the assassination of Mr. Nijjar.
Thank you. And I'm going to suggest to you that CSIS knew about an active threat to the lives of at least 5 Sikh community leaders, including by Hardeep Singh, as early as July 2022, when members of an integrated national security enforcement team visited their homes to deliver a warning. Is that something that you're able to confirm in public, or is that something that is not able to be shared publicly?
Madam Commissioner, I'm not sure about the source of that information. I am aware, and we have said that there's been said publicly. There's been a number of exercise by the police on duty to warn about a potential threat to individuals. That information may have been made available to police through their own means or through CSIS. But the specifics of these 5 individuals, I do not have any specific information to share.
A number of Sikh activists in Canada continue to face threats emanating from India to this day. Is that correct?
The activities that we've described in the documents that have made public speak to a focus of the government of India and some of their proxies against dissidents in Canada. Yes.
So I'm going to suggest that despite numerous warnings prior to June 2023 about the threat to the lives of several activists, CSIS did not engage in threat reduction measures, specifically countering India's operational capacity in this regard, or otherwise ensure the physical safety and security of those targeted individuals. Those individuals who receive duties to warn are essentially at their own devices to protect themselves or avoid harm. Is that correct?
I would not accept the premise of that question, no.
So looking forward...
So the premise, as was very clear there, is that Pravjot Singh was basically laying out the facts that CSIS were perfectly aware of threats from India to the Sikh population, particularly the Sikh Khalistani activists, and actually didn't do anything about it other than issue these threat to life warnings to various activists, including Nijjar himself. And the former director of CSIS is basically washing his hands, saying, no, we deny this. But it's very clear that Pravjot Singh has laid out the facts. And of course, the questioning did go on for quite a while after that. And again, it was a bit of a thrust and parry between Pravjot and the CSIS rep, basically where the accusations were thrown at him, and he just battered them aside, saying, no, we deny all this. Ultimately, I mean, it's almost irrelevant, his answers at this stage. I think what obviously will be relevant, James, is the conclusions of this. And the facts do actually speak for themselves. He couldn't deny the fact that CSIS were aware of a threat to Khalistani activists prior to Nijjar's killing. And he did acknowledge the fact that threats to life warnings were given to various individuals in the community. And he couldn't deny the fact that that there was violence then meted out to Khalistani activists, including the killing of Nijjar. So the facts speak for themselves, James. He can deny all he wants, but clearly CSIS were aware of it. They actually didn't do very much about it. And as Pravjot Singh said, basically they issued these threat to life warnings and said, well, sorry, but that's it, you're on your own. Doesn't put CSIS in such a great light, does it?
Absolutely. And that's even at the courthouse yesterday, I was speaking to some individuals who are subjects of warnings right now. Even none of these notices have been rescinded. They're trying to go about living their life as normal as they can, but they're always looking over their shoulder. They're always, peeking out the windows at home to see who's following them or who's lurking around. And, especially for the individuals with families, with kids, that's a pretty scary thing to have over your head at all times.
Indeed. And of course, the same thing is happening here in the UK, where various threats to life have been issued to many Khalistani activists here in the UK. and they are having to live, unfortunately, under the same harassment, intimidation from overseas, with feeling of little feelings of protection from the British state. They are handed these notices saying you're in trouble, somebody's out to kill you. And ironically, the law enforcement or the intelligence services aren't allowed to tell the individual where the threat is from, who the threat is from. Of course, we know it's India. And they're basically told, well, just watch out. Vary your routes home at night, things like that. I mean, well, thanks and all that, but we don't feel very protected. So, yeah, clearly we'll follow this story with interest to see what blame actually does lie on CSIS at the end of this. Okay, let's move on to my second story. And again, this is a story.
And the doctor giving you a roll of duct tape to go home with.
Exactly, it is. It's pretty shocking actually, and it doesn't make you feel safe in your beds at home when law enforcement do tend to wash their hands of these things once they've warned you. So, okay, my next story is, and again, it's one we have covered in the past. So I'll quickly rattle through this again, but it is just a little update. And this is the story of the dreadful story of that doctor who was raped and murdered in India recently, and of course the doctors came out on strike as a result and took to the streets. Well, they've done it again, and tens of thousands of doctors have packed the streets once again in Kolkata. This is 2 months later after that last incident where that 31-year-old doctor's bloodied body was discovered in a state-run hospital. Now, doctors in the city went on strike for weeks in response, and they walked off the job yet again yesterday, saying pledges by the West Bengal state government to improve safety and security at hospitals had been unmet. Well, I mean, here we are again. The state once again are doing nothing about it. Now, the doctors were joined by thousands of people from all walks of life for a huge protest march, with many carrying the Indian tricolour flag and some staying out until dawn. And really just to send this message to the state government. Look, primarily it's fronted by the doctors, but many people from all walks of society are now joining these marches saying, look, we have to do something about this. Further demonstrations are called over coming days, and a senior police official told the press agencies on condition of anonymity that more than 2,500 extra police officers had been put on active duty around Kolkata. Basically, they know that more and more people are joining these marches because more and more people are just getting sick and tired of this violence against women across India. And the victim of the August attack isn't being identified, as we know, in keeping with Indian laws on reporting of sexual violence cases. And doctors had briefly returned to limited duties in emergency departments last month, only to strike again in defiance of a September order from India's top court to fully return to work. They say that the state government's promises to upgrade lighting, CCTV cameras and other security measures in hospitals have not been fulfilled. It's another failure. I mean, how much more, James, do the people of India have to rise up? This is the doctors as well. This is the medical profession, one of the most senior and respected professions in India, are demanding action, and even the government is not even listening to the doctors, to the medical profession. Now, ordinary Indians have, of course, been protesting about this for years and nothing's been done. So the doctors, in turn, it's happened directly to the medical profession with this poor doctor who was raped and murdered. And if the government are not even listening to the doctors, who are the government going to listen to? Again, we talk about this. Action can only happen from the government, and yet the government once again are failing one of the most basic failures of Indian society, this mass sexual attacks on women. It's just unforgivable, James.
Yeah, and there's even a recent case where there were reports of a school custodian sexually assaulting a couple of 6-year-old girls at the school. Staff and administration were made aware of it. They failed to take action. When the police were finally notified, they also failed to act against those individuals for failing to report, which is a major criminal charge in India. And actually a judge has come down on the police force as well, but it just shows the lack of enforcement and concern about the safety of women in India. It's horrifying.
Yeah, it is. It's shocking, and I have no doubt that we will continue to be reporting on stories like this really for the foreseeable future. So, okay, let me move on to my final story, and we've often talked about shadow banning. We do know that we've been hit on, certainly on YouTube and social media. Satluj have clearly been shadow banned. We've had comments disappearing and all sorts of subtle attacks online to try and really reduce our reach. And in recent months, the Sikh Press Association, particularly based in the UK, has been impacted by what they call a drastic downturn in engagement, and particularly on X, on Twitter, due to the shadow banning, what they believe is the shadow banning of their account. Now, as an example, they've actually discovered, and they've kept an eye on things clearly, very closely, to try and generate evidence of this. And of course, it's very hard to prove this is going on. But they've just shown, actually, and I'll just show it here, what they revealed over the last day or two. What they claim is proof of their account being shadow banned. Now, they posted up a few days ago a really nice post about two Sikh girls. This was two Sikh sisters, Deep and Simran Kaur from the Midlands here in the UK. They won 8 gold medals between them at last week's World Martial Arts Elite Championship. So well done to these two girls. Fabulous achievement, by the way. The teens represented England at the Chomutov in the Czech Republic tournament. And last year they went viral for winning 64 goals. So well done to those two girls. Now, the Sikh Press Association, as part of their general posting up, they posted up a post about this with a lovely photo of the two girls. And their recent viral post on Sikh sporting success was copied verbatim by another account with, as they say, 36,000 less followers than the Sikh Press Association. Now, it was actually it was posted up and shared by Manjot Singh, another person in the community, who posted up exactly the same post. So there's a perfect comparison between the two. Now, just to highlight this, the Sikh Press Association has 37,000 followers on X. Manjot Singh has 127. So there's immediately, you've got one large account, Sikh Press Association, and one very, very small member of the community with only 127 followers. Yet, it turns out that Manjot Singh got 150% more people than the original post. Manjot Singh had 11,000 views as opposed to 4,500 views of the Sikh Press Association. So that's a huge difference for exactly the same post and for somebody who's only got 127 followers. It stands as actually a perfect side-by-side example of the main account with 37,000 followers only reaching a small number of views, getting 4,500 views, a tiny account that clearly isn't shadow banned reaching 11,000. So absolutely, I think it's a pretty good comparison. I think that is pretty compelling evidence, James, that there is something going on. Clearly, that there is shadow banning going on. We've all been suspicious of it. The Sikh Press Association have been suspicious of it for years. They know it's been going on, particularly around June time. Every time there's an anniversary of 1984, we've actually covered many proofs that across social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or X, that anything to do with the Sikh genocides, 1984 attack on the Golden Temple, they've clearly been shadow banned. But here, just on a very innocuous post, just two sisters successful at a games event, a martial arts event, that post has been shadow banned. I would say that's pretty compelling, James.
It is, and it makes me wonder because I read the story, I saw the tweet, and reshared it on my account. So I'm going to have to go back and look and see which one of those two posts that I reshared.
Yeah, it does. And we've seen it. Even our own audience has commented on the fact that their comments are disappearing. We've noticed on certain of our videos, and actually, here's another one. My discussion with Gurpreet Singh Johal a couple of days ago. I posted it up, and of course it's got a big hashtag Jaggi on the thumbnail and loads of references to Jaggi. The views on that interview are very, very low, suspiciously low. This is a topic that is huge in the Sikh community. This is a topic not just that's huge in the Sikh community, that actually has an international reach, that has a reach right across the United Kingdom. It has a reach across all sorts of human rights organisations. So this has a potentially large audience, and yet the number of views are tiny compared to many of our other videos. Again, highly suspicious. I think, James, there's all sorts of shenanigans, as I call it, going on. Clearly, the Hindutva forces, the IT cells, they're all over this. And of course, those working in the social media accounts, in the social media companies, many in Silicon Valley, that have large Indian diaspora employees who are in control of many of these things. So very suspicious, James.
Yeah, absolutely, Angus. And we know what's happening, so.
Okay, let's move on to our comments section. Lots of comments. Again, thank you, as always, for the comments coming in and pouring in. Much appreciated to each and every one of you. We had some interesting comments again this time. And here's one from Muhammad Shahzad. Now, I'm assuming, this is a big assumption, but I'm assuming that Muhammad is Islamic and maybe even from Pakistan. I don't know if we have any viewers from Pakistan, but maybe this could be one of them. Please do let us know, Muhammad. He says, Modi policy, big problem in the world, and Indian foreign policy, and plans terrorism, effectively terroristic acts. But why is the Indian media all time falsifying and lying? Why? Big question of law of the world and world media answer waiting Pakistan. I couldn't quite understand the second half of this, but I think essentially the main premise of this comment is, why is the Indian media always falsifying and lying? Well, Mohammed, I think we talk about this on a regular basis. We know why. It's basically propaganda. And it is the Indian narrative that we are trying to counter with the truth. We struggle with this. And of course, again, James, we talked about shadow banning. And it's interesting, and I hope you are from Pakistan, Mohammed, because of course there is this friction between India and Pakistan. And of course, I would say essentially the main friction is from the Indian government and the Pakistan governments. And of course, people either side of the line of the boundary between India and Pakistan. And again, we've covered stories where there have been many families who actually live either side of the border and have not been able to see each other for years, decades even, because that border is closed in many cases. And it does point to this disjoint between governments who are essentially at war with each other and the ordinary people who are not at war with each other. And it's interesting to get a perspective from, again, this is a big assumption, from Mohammed, who I assume is in Pakistan. So thank you for that comment. And do let us know, Mohammed, where you are from. And James, I wanted to highlight this one. This is an interesting one. R.R. Chandar says, these two, and I'm assuming he's referring to the pair of us, these two are defending people who committed the biggest terrorist act in Canadian history, the Air India bombing. Actually, well, this is, assuming this is us defending what he believes, or I say, assume it's a he, is defending Khalistan campaigners who he alleges are behind the terrorist bombing of Air India. I hate to point it out to you, R.R. Chanda, that as we keep repeating on a regular basis, the perpetrators of that act are most unlikely not Khalistani campaigners for many reasons that we have set out ad nauseam. It is more likely a false flag operation by the Indian intelligence services, James. I think we've been falsely accused here as well.
And we've covered this many times, and I don't know if this individual has actually seen any of those episodes in which we are digging for the truth, and regardless as to where the chips may fall, we are more than happy to accept the truth if another investigation comes out and proves the same as the first, or if it proves something different. A lot of facts that people don't remember are that the Canadian Intelligence Service was ordered not to investigate the government of India in the Air India case. They were ordered not to investigate certain individuals and links and potential involvement as a false flag. So, of course, there are many questions. And being that I'm actually in Metro Vancouver, I grew up here. When that happened, it affected people that I knew. It affected families. I was in school, and some people that I went to school with were directly impacted and lost people as a result of the Air India bombing. So it's not something that I defend in any way, shape, or form. What I do want to see is a proper and complete investigation so that all sides of it, all victims and their families, have the answers that they deserve. And I understand it's a tough situation. It's a tough topic to discuss. There are people on both sides of the issue, but at the end of the day, it's all about getting to the truth, Angus.
Absolutely. And R.R. Chanda, we're not defending the people who committed this act. We're actually trying to find the truth of who did commit this act, because we will condemn them just as much as you would, I'm sure. So Mukhtar Singh, I hope the US will not compromise on human rights issues of the Sikh community. A very powerful point, and I would likewise say I hope the UK doesn't compromise on human rights issues of the Sikh community. Because, it always comes down to this balance between human rights and trade. And Sarvjit Singh also makes the point, I hope the USA keeps firm policies to protect its citizens from foreign government repression. And Stay Safe responds to that by saying Blinken will negotiate these matters and take action. The US Department of State using legal action is most important. So, James, I think this really comes back down to how much are our governments going to protect the Sikh community against these foreign threats. I'm very encouraged to see that certainly in the US, the new legislation being brought in, the Transnational Repression Reporting Act, brought in by congressmen from the Democrat Party, congressmen and women from the Democrat Party, a fabulous piece of legislation obliging the US government to take the whole matter seriously, to report it and therefore act on it. I think the momentum is moving in the right direction, James, on this.
Absolutely, and I just hope that Canada follows suit to make sure that we do better at protecting all Canadian citizens and any guests of Canada. So if you're visiting Canadian locations, we need to make sure everybody's safe on Canadian soil.
Indeed, and I would also point our audience to tomorrow's podcast, which will be uploaded tomorrow, either late tonight or tomorrow. I'll be interviewing Dabinderjit Singh, Principal Advisor to the Sikh Federation, and we will be talking about how the UK and how the Sikh community is going to be pressuring the UK and is pressuring very successfully the British government on such matters as well, particularly about human rights versus trade deals, etc. So keep an eye out for that. Now, Khalistani Jat says, after a long time with the help of North America, sharing Khalistan issue at world level. This is all about, James, spreading the Khalistan message globally. It is reaching governments. It is reaching a global audience now. As we reported yesterday, it is going mainstream.
And it's long overdue, Angus.
It is just, absolutely. And Captain Jat says, you guys are great, informative about Sikhs. Well, thank you very much. India has been taken over by RSS nutters. Well, I couldn't put it more colloquially better myself, James.
I love it. I love it.
But I mean, I could slightly pick that apart and say it hasn't been taken over. It may be, arguably, India itself has always been run by RSS nutters since India ever existed. Essentially, it's the Brahmins. Yeah. So that's the only subtle nuance I would change that to. So, here's a good one. APS Rosary. Go to India to protest for Khalistan. Why do it in the US? You cowards. Well, we've talked about this regularly. The reason why APS Rosary is that people protest for Khalistan in places like Canada, the UK, Australia, the United States, and not in India and Punjab, is because it's safe to do so in a democracy. It's safe to go out in the streets and wave the Khalistan flag in a normal democracy. In the Indian so-called democracy, it's not. Look what happens if you protest on behalf of Khalistan in the Punjab or in India. You get sent to jail. Amrit Pal Singh, a prime example of that. Unfortunately, this is why India's democracy is failing. And unfortunately, it's nothing to do with cowardice. It's basically survival instinct. People are trying to stand up for Khalistan in the Punjab, but what happens to them? They get sent to jail. That is not a sign of cowardice. It's a sign of something going desperately wrong in Indian so-called democracy. So unfortunately, I'm sure our audience would react quite strongly to this accusation of cowardice, and I will leave that up to our audience to respond accordingly in the comments, maybe after today's video. But APS Rosary, I suggest, in fact, I would suggest that wherever you're based, you go out to, if the referendum or there's a Khalistan rally happening near you, I strongly recommend that you go to that rally and you stand up and you shout, "You cowards!" And please take a camera with you and report back to us how that goes. James, what do you think?
I might have a better idea, and that would be to go to a rally and actually talk to people and find out the truth and the information, because I mean, being locked up in jail is probably the best thing that could happen in India, because there are people that are tortured, people that are killed, and tortured and then killed. They go after their families. They go after friends and extended relatives. I mean, the way that they battle against people who speak out against anything to do with government, or especially when it comes to Khalistan, I mean, there's absolutely no holds barred when it comes to what the India government and the RSS and others will do to them. And that is why they speak out from here, because they're safe to do so. And they have that support and the freedom of speech that actually is a freedom of speech, not something that's just written on paper, but not actually practical in societies like it is in India, where you get locked up, you get killed, you get your family threatened. I mean, the list goes on, Angus. So yeah, I think it's a real misinformation on that, making that statement, because I don't think that the person's well informed on how it works.
Yeah, and I think the word coward is a pretty poor use of the term here, because it's not cowardice. You may as well call anybody who lives under an oppressive regime a coward for not protesting against that oppressive regime. You could look at the Soviet Union, or even present-day Russia, or in China, or other oppressive regimes, totalitarian regimes around the world. It's like calling everybody who is oppressed under those regimes as cowards for not standing up against it. I think there's a huge lack of understanding and common sense in that comment. But anyway, thank you for that comment. Now, stay safe, N71. I like this one. I had to post this up because a lot of effort's gone into this, and it is worth displaying for the effort that's gone into this. Khalistan referendum. We have a lovely graphic showing the Kandahar within, surrounded by, essentially, it's a Khalistan flag and an unlocked padlock. And contrast that with the locked-in Indian flag there, with Punjab, the Khalistan, locked in against its will within India. Equal rights and self-determination of peoples, yes or no, United Nations. And again, a ballot box democracy. I think a graphic that paints, I think it paints 1,000 words.
I think it's great. It's very creative, but it also delivers quite the message. Very well done.
Well done, stay safe. We like that one. Now, I had to post this one out. Palwinder Kaur. We get a lot of Khalistan's Zindabads on our comments columns. Absolutely. Keep them coming. And this one, I think, because she obviously went to such great efforts. And it says read more at the bottom. And you don't even need to click on read more to guess what follows. Many Khalistan. So, again, huge effort. Thank you for that. Probably a lot of copy and pasting going on there, James. But again, we appreciate the massive outpouring of passion clearly within that post and the many other posts like it.
Absolutely.
Right, Cruella. Oh yeah, we come back to our film about the Sikh Empire. It's gathering momentum. We will get this film off the ground one way or another, James. And Cruella suggests contacting Mel Gibson. Well, probably Mel Gibson, as his past track record. I think he was a Scotsman in a very powerful, wonderful film actually about Scotland and Scottish independence, or the fight for Scottish independence, where he played a Scotsman with the most dreadful Scottish accent. Basically, it was an Australian accent, and maybe Mel Gibson's Punjabi accent could be equally as good, James.
Well, I think they might be referring to the fact that he and several other very powerful Hollywood bigwigs like Clint Eastwood have opened a new studio that's supposed to be anti-woke and just going against the mainstream media to create real stories. And they've actually just had an investment of $500 million towards the studio. So, hey, maybe that's what they're referring to, right?
Fantastic. Well, get your emails in and on social media to Mel Gibson. Highlight the fact that this is a great story of the Sikh Empire. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. Maheep Singh Baines says, we love your show, thank you. We love your comments. Thanks for expressing unbiased views about the Sikh community and Khalistan. Yeah, the key word here is unbiased. Actually, I have to confess, James, we are maybe a little bit biased. We are biased towards the truth. And in fact, we are unapologetically, and I think actually there was I didn't put it up here, there was a comment from somebody, a critic, one of our wonderful critics, who had a right go at us, James, about, you're clearly a pro-Khalistan channel. Well, yes, we are. Of course we are. We are slightly biased towards. It's like going into a shoe shop and saying, you sell shoes here. Well, yeah, of course we're a pro-Khalistan channel, James.
Yeah, I've never gone to the Nike store for condoms.
Exactly. So, Oh yeah, now Devinder Duty, thank you for this comment. Somebody else had commented the other day about how to get around the Indian firewall, the internet firewall. And Devinder Duty says changing phone settings to a different country does work. That's how people get to use YouTube where it's banned. Like example, Dubai. James, it does work. How interesting.
Oh, there you go. That's amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so very useful. So if you are in the Punjab, tell everybody around the Punjab, change your phone settings to a different country and you'll be able to access this. So great news, that, great news. Oh no, two hellos from... Two hellos from Kuldeep, who is in Kolkata. Welcome, Kuldeep. Thank you for joining us. And Kuldeep Arora in the UK, here in the UK. So again, a welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us and letting us know where you are from. Spread the word, of course. Oh, James, I love this comment. Harj Kainth says, is this guy AI? I don't know which one of us is referring to, but apparently he thinks we're AI.
We've been accused of that before, Angus, and as I said then, and I'll say it again, I would definitely choose a better looking avatar for myself.
Well, there is that. And if we start glitching, then you know we are AI. And a final sign-off, a lovely sign-off from Jagtar Sidhu, who says, O Creator, Lord of the universe, and millions more universes, the searcher of thoughts, the inner knower of all beings, please bless Sikhs with the Khalsa Raj. Thanks, friends, for information on the Sikh nation. Well, all I would say to you, Jagtar, is thank you for that. Absolutely spot on. Lovely words to end the show with. And we do our bit, James and I, for the cause, and we will hopefully, God willing, continue to do our bit as well. So, but unfortunately, time has brought us to a close. We must finish Perspectives for another day. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in. We do like to read them. They are highly entertaining. They are highly educational. They give us loads to talk about. And so do keep them coming. And don't forget, you can, of course, message us directly at message@satellitetv.com on anything that you'd like to bring to our attention that you don't want to put in the public domain. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching Perspectives. We do appreciate you in the audience. It is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You've been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.